Okay, so the last section that we need to talk about here with functions are zeros, and that was one of the last definitions that you had in your vocabulary. And so first off, we're just going to define this in a couple of different ways. So on a graph, so graphically, a zero is the point at which the graph crosses or intersects, whatever you want to call it, the x-axis. Okay, it's where it crosses the x-axis. So algebraically, okay, meaning mathematically, it's the point or points at which f of x is equal to 0, okay, or where y is equal to 0. All right, other names for them, remember they can be called roots, they could be called x-intercepts, or it could be called a solution. Okay, and so basically when we're looking at a graph, okay, we find the zeros by finding where they cross the x-axis. So right here. All right, and so that is where the point 2, 0. That's the 0 for this function. Same thing down here. We cross right here. So that's at 3, 0. And in this last example, there are 2 places where it crosses, and that is -1, 0, and 5, 0. Okay, and so these are the points that they cross. Now, when we write our answer, here x is equal to 2, x is equal to 3, and here x is equal to both -1 and 5, so we have to write that as a solution set. Okay, so we're looking for those x equals the point that it crosses the x-axis. Okay, all right, so that's graphically the way to find them. It's very simple. We are going to talk about algebraically now. Okay, so algebraically means that we, step 1, set the function equal to 0, and step 2, we solve for x. That's how we find it. Okay, so we know how to find it on a graph. We also need to be able to find it mathematically. So we take this function and we take that y and make it equal to 0. And now we solve for x. So I would add the 8, and then I would divide by 4, and x is equal to 2. Okay, that's where that is located. So if you graph that, you would see that it crosses the x-axis at 2. Same thing here. We're going to set it equal to 0. We're going to subtract the 7. Okay, and now we end up with this weird situation where we have a negative x. We can't leave that negative x, so what we're going to do is multiply this side by -1 and multiply by this side by -1. So if I do it to this side and I do it to this side, it still keeps it equal. So we end up with an x is equal to -7. The other way you could solve this is we could have moved the x first, and then we would have x equals 7. So sorry guys, let's see, and this is why we have to be careful. When I move that 7 over, this should be a -7, which makes this +7. So there we go. Now our answers match. I apologize for that. Sometimes we make mistakes. So when you multiply that negative times the negative, you get a positive on both sides. And so over here, when I add that, I get the +7. So, okay, got that fixed now. Sorry about that. So down here, same process. 0 is equal to 1/2 x plus 2. We subtract the 2. We get -2 is equal to 1/2 x. To get rid of the fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. And so -2 times 2 is -4. And so that x value is -4. Okay, so pretty simple. We're just looking for that x value when y is 0. Now, there's another way to do this. We can do it using a graphing calculator. And so you have a couple of options. And if I can get my screen recorder to work, I will send you the way to do it on Desmos for those of you who are working from home. For those of you who are going to be in the classroom with me, you will have access to a graphing calculator. Okay, so here's our graphing calculator. So step one, once we turn it on, you're going to hit the y equals button. That's this button at the very top here. So you hit y equals. Okay, whatever's in there, you just clear it out. We're going to put in the function, whatever it is. So instead of y, we have f of x equals. Here we have y equals. We're going to plug in x. Here's our x button right here. Okay, squared. Here's the squared button. And then minus 16. And then once we have it entered into there, we press this graph button right here at the top. And now we can see where it crosses. At 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 4. And at positive 4 are the two places that it crosses the x-axis. Okay, so and you would continue to do that for each of these other examples. So we would go back to the y equals, clear it out, type in this, so it is negative. Here's our, move that up so you can see. Here's our negative button way down at the very bottom right here. And then we press the x button, that's this one right here. And then the squared button. And then minus 2x plus 24. Hit the graph button. And there are our two values. So we have negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 6, and positive 4. Okay, so that's always an option to use the calculator. On number 17, we'll go back, we'll do the same thing. So y equals, press clear to get that cleared out. We're going to type in x squared minus 3x minus 28. And we're going to hit graph. And x is equal to negative 4 and positive 7. Okay. And then the last two examples, we do the same thing. Go to y equals, clear it out, type in x cubed. So this time I'm going to do x. And I don't have a cubed button. So what I have to use is this arrow right here at the very bottom right here where the clear button is. Press that, which is a raised button. And then I'm going to use the 3 for the third power, okay? And then it's going to have a little arrow that flashes, so I just hit this right arrow right here, okay? And that will bring me back to the regular, and then I do minus 5, and then I do x squared just like normal, plus 2x, plus 8, okay? And then graph it. And I'm going to have 3 places where it crosses this time. So I have a negative 1, I have a positive 1, and I have one, oh I'm sorry, I have a positive 2, miscounted. So negative 1, positive 2, and positive 4. Okay, and that's where I have each of those points crossing the x-axis. So negative 1, 2, and 4. Alright. Last one, y equals, clear it out, type this in, so I have 3, here's the 3 button down here, x, and then remember we do raised to, again, the third power, okay, and then hit that right arrow, and then minus 3x, and graph it. And it crosses at negative 1, 0, and positive 1. And those are the points for that. So this works great for problems that you know are going to be on a whole number. The graph doesn't work well if your graph crosses the x-axis at a number that's not a whole number. Sometimes it's difficult to see those fractions. So that's where doing it algebraically is going to come in handy. So that way you know both ways to do it. So you just need to complete the rest of these example problems. If you want me to check it, send it to me. I'll be glad to do that. And then also don't forget that you need to ask any questions if you have any, and I'll be glad to answer those. I'll try to do one more video so I can show you how to do the same thing on Desmos. But for those of you who want to try it, there's a graphing calculator, and it's called Desmos.com. It's free. Just go there. It'll allow you to click graphing calculator, and then you can just type in the same thing that we typed in on our y equals. Okay, you would type that in on there, and it'll graph it for you, and you can do the same thing, the same process there as we did on the calculator. So you don't even have to have a graphing calculator at home. You can use the one online. All right, so if you come up with any questions, I'll be glad to help you, and let me know if you need anything. Thanks, guys.